name is McCasland, and this is my Literary Elements lesson plan. It is a first grade lesson, and it should take approximately 30 minutes. My teacher objective is that the teacher will teach students how to identify story elements, including setting. It's GLE 12, and it's benchmark ELA 1-E4. I'll begin the lesson by reviewing the story element that we had learned the day before, which was style and point of view. I'll put the definitions of the point of view that we went over the day before on the smart board, and the definitions, the ones that we have went over the day before are first person, third person limited, and third person omniscient. And I would go over those definitions with the class, and I would ask the following assessment questions for the review. I would ask, who can raise their hand and tell me what point of view Where the Wild Thing in the book Where the Wild Things Are is told from? And hopefully they would say that the book Where the Wild Things Are, which is the book that we read yesterday, was told in third person limited. Question number 2, who can raise their hand and tell me what point of view the story would be told from if the story used the words I, me, my, myself, or mine? And they would say first person. And question number 3, who can tell me why the story does not have a third person omniscient point of view? And hopefully that they would be able to tell me that it's not third person omniscient because we do not know what all of the characters are thinking in the story. We just know what the character Max is thinking in the story. My overview, the purpose and importance of this lesson is to extend the learner's knowledge of literary elements and story structure to improve their comprehension of narrative text. This will help the student to be successful in reading comprehension and when organizing and writing their own stories. The continuity, yesterday we learned about a narrative style and point of view. Today we will learn about a narrative setting, and tomorrow we will learn about the characters in a narrative story. And the objective is that the learner will identify the story element setting. My motivation is, I'm going to start out by saying, yesterday we learned about the style and point of view of a story or narrative when we read the story Where the Wild Things Are. Today we're going to learn about another literary element, setting. The setting of a story is the place where the story happens and the time when it happens. The setting answers the questions of where and when. The setting doesn't have to be a real time and place. It can be imaginary, like the island Neverland in the story of Peter Pan. We will read today the picture book Corduroy. After we read this book, we will do a couple of fun activities about the setting. And I'll then begin the lesson by reading the story Corduroy. Corduroy by Don Freeman. Corduroy is the bear who once lived in the toy department of a big store. Day after day he waited with all the other animals and dolls for somebody to come along and take him home. The store was always filled with shoppers buying all sorts of things, but no one ever seemed to want a small bear in green overalls. Then one morning a little girl stopped and looked straight into Corduroy's bright eyes. "Oh, Mommy," she said, "look, there's the very bear I've always wanted." "Not today, dear," her mother sighed. "I've spent too much already. Besides, he doesn't look new. He's lost the button to one of his shoulder straps." Corduroy watched them sadly as they walked away. "I didn't know I'd lost a button," he said to himself. "Tonight I will go and see if I can find it." Late that evening, when all the shoppers had gone and the doors were shut and locked, Corduroy climbed carefully down from his shelf and began searching everywhere on the floor for his lost button. Suddenly he felt the floor moving under him. Quite by accident, he had stepped onto an escalator, and up he went. Could this be a mountain, he wondered? I think I've always wanted to climb a mountain. He stepped off the escalator as it reached the next floor, and there, before his eyes, was a most amazing sight. Tables and chairs and lamps and sofas, and rows of beds. This must be a palace, Corduroy gasped. I guess I've always wanted to live in a palace. He wandered around admiring the furniture. This must be a bed, he said. I've always wanted to sleep in a bed. And up he crawled onto a large, thick mattress. All at once he saw something small and round. Why, here's my button, he cried, and he tried to pick it up, but like all the other buttons on the mattress, it was tied down tight. He yanked and pulled with both paws until pop! Off came the button, and off the mattress Corduroy toppled. Bang! Into a tall floor lamp. Over it fell with a crash. Corduroy didn't know it, but there was something else awake in the store. The night watchman was going his rounds on the floor above. When he heard the crash, he came dashing down the escalator. Now who in the world did that? He exclaimed. Somebody must be hiding around here. He flashed his light under and over sofas and beds until he came to the biggest bed of all, and there he saw two fuzzy brown ears sticking up from under the cover. Hello, he said. How did you get upstairs? The watchman tucked Corduroy under his arm and carried him down the escalator, and set him on the shelf in the toy department with the other animals and dolls. Corduroy was just waking up when the first customers came into the store in the morning, and there, looking at him with a wide, warm smile, was the same little girl he had seen only the day before. I'm Lisa, she said, and you are going to be my very own bear. Last night, I counted what I had saved in my piggy bank, and my mother said that I could bring you home. Shall I put him in a box for you? The saleslady asked. Oh, no, thank you, Lisa answered, and she carried Corduroy home in her arms. She ran all the way up 4 flights of stairs into her family's apartment and straight to her very own room. Corduroy blinked. There was a chair and a chest of drawers, and alongside a girl-sized bed stood a little bed, just the right size for him. The room was small, nothing like that enormous palace in the department store. This must be home, he said. I know I've always wanted a home. Lisa sat down with Corduroy on her lap and began to sew a button on his overalls. I like you the way you are, she said, but you'll be more comfortable with your shoulder strap fastened. You must be a friend, said Corduroy. I've always wanted a friend. Me too, said Lisa, and gave him a big hug. After reading the story, I'll begin my 2 activities. My first activity is a settings activity where the class will work together to create a wear and win chart on the settings in the book Corduroy. I would pull this chart up on the smartboard, but this is the chart, and it just says Corduroy wear and win charts, and there's evidence, and that's how you can tell in the story what the setting is, the wear and the win, and there's a column for the type of evidence and what it tells you. And I would begin by modeling the 2 first examples. The first one is it says in the book on page 5, the toy department of a big store. So that type of evidence would be clue words, and it would tell us where the setting is. And also, there's a picture on page 5 of toys on a shelf, and that would be picture evidence, and that would also tell us where. And then I would go through, there's 10 different pieces of evidence on the page, but I'll just read a few of them. Let's see. On page 7 in the book, it says, "Then one morning." So that would be clue words for evidence. So I would have one of them raise their hand, and if they told me clue words would be the answer, I would fill in clue words under type of evidence on the smartboard, and it tells us when. And I would go through this whole sheet on the smartboard with the class as a whole, and that would be visual and oral response. And then my second activity, I'm going to do a settings matching game to reinforce the literary element setting. I would place the students in groups of 5 or 6, and to each group I would pass out a set of these setting matching cards. And I just have 3 here for an example, but the groups would have to match the character, which the character card would have a picture of the character and then the name of the character, for example, doctor, lawyer, cowboy, etc. And then on the other card, it would have a description of the setting, and they would have to match the description of the setting to the character and tell me where the character is. For example, this one's a doctor, so it says doctor on the character card, and on the settings card it says there is a waiting room, there are nurses and a receptionist, there are medical tools here too. So they would match these two up, and they would say that they are in a doctor's office. And each group would have 3 sets. There's an astronaut, and then there's a cowboy, but you could do numerous different characters and settings with these, and each group would just match those up, and I would walk around the class during the activity to assess their understanding and also to assist with anyone that might need some help. And then for my closure, I would ask the following questions to the class as a whole to assess for their understanding of the lesson that we covered today. I will say, number 1, who can tell me what a setting is? And they should be able to tell me that the setting is the where and when of the story, or the place the story takes place and the time that it takes place. Number 2, what are the settings in the story Corduroy? And they could tell me the department store during the day or the department store at night. Also, they could tell me Lisa's bedroom at the end of the story during the evening. And then I will ask, how do you identify the setting in a story? And they should be able to tell me that you can identify the setting in a story by looking at the pictures, reading the text, and paying close attention to setting clue words in the story. Number 4, who can remember some of the settings in the book we read yesterday, Where the Wild Things Are? And hopefully they would remember that some of the settings in the story were Max's bedroom, Max's house, in a boat, the place where the wild things were at night, etc. For homework, the learner will read another book of their choice at home with a parent. The learner will write on a sheet of notebook paper the name of the book they read or listened to, and what the setting was in the narrative, the where and the when, and they would need a book, a piece of paper, and a pencil, and this would be formal assessment, and it would be a whole class activity. Early finishers will complete a Corduroy setting worksheet, which is this worksheet. They'll fill in the title of the book, which was Corduroy, and then they would fill in what setting in the book did you like the most. So they would write a sentence telling me what their favorite setting was, what did they like about the setting, and they would just write a sentence telling me what they liked about that setting. And then down here they'll draw a picture of something that they remember from the story. And that's for early finishers. Special needs, students with reading disabilities and or English language learners will work in small groups with the paraprofessional to understand and fill in the where and when chart that we did as a class in activity number 1. and they will all have a printed copy of the chart to work with, and that'll be oral and written response in small group. Remediation, the learner will be placed in a small group and the teacher will reread corduroy to the group. The teacher will go over the definition of setting and how we can identify the setting, the where and when in a story. The teacher and students will discuss the settings in corduroy. And that would be using the book Corduroy by Don Freeman, and it would be oral and visual response and small group. For enrichment, the learner will draw a picture of corduroy onto cardstock. The learner will then color in corduroy using crayons or colored pencils. They will then draw clothes on construction paper for their bears, cut them out, and glue them onto their bear. And then they will write a sentence or two under their bear describing what they made. And that would use cardstock, crayons, colored pencils, construction paper, and that is for formal assessment and for enrichment. Thank you.